part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
This episode of Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Newark AutoBody. With winter weather and slick road conditions comes black ice and accidents. And if you've been in an accident and your car needs a little TLC, look no further than Newark AutoBody in Zanesville AutoBody. Safe, reliable collision repairs is their business. Newark AutoBody in Zanesville AutoBody is a local family-run and veteran-owned business serving Newark, Zanesville, and surrounding areas. And guess what? They work with all insurance providers to make your experience hassle-free. And if you are a U.S. military veteran, even better. Ask about their special discounts for vets at the shop, and they'll be happy to help. Look, it can be hard finding a trustworthy car mechanic, but people over at Newark AutoBody and Zanesville AutoBody have you covered. They care for you first and make sure they keep you safe and back on the road. Visit them at autobodyofnewark.com and autobodyofzanesville.com to get your repair started. Our iCar Gold Class team of skilled collision repair technicians will make your vehicle like new again. Head on over to our show notes for links and tell them Press Play sent you.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Hey, what's good? Thanks for stopping by to Cavs on the Break NBA podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sabo here, along with Hoops Wire Zone. You know him, we love him. We, of course, love him here on the podcast. Sam Amico. Sam, we're celebrating a Cavs win tonight.
John, I can't remember the last time that they led a game wire to wire, but they did that against the Utah Jazz, and they really needed a win like that.
Yes, they did. In Utah, Salt Lake City, not a good place for Cleveland to play well in. Cavs beating the Jazz tonight as we record this year on Tuesday the 3rd. If you're listening on the 4th, Cavs win 129-113. We'll get into that game as well as the next few games here coming up on the West Coast trip here in the next week in just a moment. But if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to podcasts. Give us a review. Once you subscribe, you'll get notifications to your device on when we get new episodes like this one dropping in your palm of your hand of your phone, tablet, whatever. Hit that follow button on Twitter. Follow the pod at Cavs on the Break. Follow Sam at Amico Hoops and follow me at John_Sable. Chase Smith taking a little break tonight, so you guys are stuck with us here for the next 30, 40 minutes or so as we dissect what happened in Salt Lake City and what's going to be going on here in the next few days for the Cavaliers. Okay, so you mentioned that wire-to-wire finish, Sam. They had a 24-point lead. At one point, the largest lead. They ended up winning big regardless. And, coming off of what happened in the last few games, losing bad in Denver to start the road trip off awful. We had some, probably one of their worst losses of the year, in my opinion, to start a road trip there. And then you come back 2 days later and beat a Jazz team that's been kind of reeling as well. But at the same time, you're going to take a win no matter what.
Yeah, and you lost to Denver in the fashion that you did, which was, not good. And then, early last week you lost at Charlotte, which was a bad loss. You got blown out at Miami. So, I mean, going back a little more than a week now, they just have not. They've looked bad. And then you go into Utah. You don't have Donovan Mitchell, who again sat out to rest that bothersome knee. And don't have Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade. But, all of a sudden you lose those guys or Mitchell, and you're not looking good, even though the Jazz are really struggling and really bad right now because of injuries to Markkanen, who's out, John Collins, their starting power forwards, out, Jordan Clarkson's been out. It's just, this is a game that you needed to win in the fashion that you did. If you were the Cavs, you needed to win a game without Donovan Mitchell. You needed to win a game convincingly, and you needed to beat a young team that's really down and out. And they did that, which I was surprised they won as easily as they did based on how they've been playing. So that, hey, look, that's one win. You have a 5-game road trip. You're 2 games in. You got to win out of it. So, and as an added bonus, John, the Milwaukee Bucks lost to the Washington Wizards, which I'm sure they're not proud of, and the the New York Knicks lost to the Miami Heat. So New York actually fell back to 5th, which would be a game and a half. They're both the Knicks and the Magic are a game and a half behind the Cavs. So, just this one win, you're solidly in 3rd. It makes you in the Eastern Conference, makes you feel good. And, yes, it was a lousy opponent, but at the same time, who cares? They've lost to lousy opponents before. It's good that they went out and took care of business right away. 15-2 run in the first quarter. Really, and the Jazz had a little run in the second quarter, but it wasn't much, and Cavs were really never threatened.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about this Jazz team, really, and I know we don't get to see them very often. Obviously, being in the Western Conference, they had high hopes this year, but those injuries have decimated them, and Cavs handed them their 10th consecutive loss, already eliminated from playoff contention there in the West. But before we kind of get forward on the standings, and you did mention what happened tonight, which was a good thing for the Cavs. I do want to talk about who really had a phenomenal game for the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell not playing. This was a maintenance day for his knee, so he wasn't gonna play in one game you didn't want him to play. It was this just because of the opponent. So that makes sense. But Karis LeVert had a team high 26 points, really a game high 26 points, and Allen and Mobley combined for 42. In the starting lineup there, Strus had a decent game, one of his best shooting games since he's been back, 15 points, and then of course Sam Merrill. I mean, I think that's the story of the game if you think of the Cavs' individual play. Sam, he had 18 points off the bench. He hit 6 threes. And this is a guy who grew up there in Utah, and his parents were in attendance, and a nice little homecoming for him.
Admitted lifelong Jazz fan. He came, he admitted that earlier in the season, grew up really pulling for the Jazz. Used to work out all the time. He went to Utah State, of course, and used to work out and play in games. When Donovan Mitchell played for the Jazz, they used to play pickup together. Merrill and Mitchell, I don't know if they played against guys like us or, what, but I would imagine that they did pretty well. So, he had a really nice game. I mean, 6 threes and really just came in, and it seemed like there were a couple of times where the Jazz would cut it to 6 or 8 or something, and it just seemed like either LeVert would hit a runner or Merrill would come in and hit a 3, and it would just kind of deflate them. So, I mean, anytime you lose Mitchell, this is what you want. You want guys like Strus and LeVert and Merrill to come in and have those bigger games. And of course, Mobley and Allen, like you said, both each had 21 points. Allen, I think, had 12 rebounds, and Mobley had 8. And it seemed like they had like 20 rebounds. That's just how easily they dominated down low. They had Mobley had a couple of really nice block shots. So it was a great way for them to kind of, look, you got to play Phoenix on Wednesday night. So you got an opportunity to rest some guys, give other guys some minutes and just something to finally say, you know what, we came in and we took care of business and we did it quickly and we kept our foot on the gas, never really let up other than maybe a 4 or 5 minute stretch in the second quarter. And this team has needed that since the All-Star break.
Yeah, they really did. And with these guys reeling and trying to get healthy at the right time, you wish you had like a better pad in the Eastern Conference standings so you could just, really give guys time off. And that's the balance right now with some guys still, Donovan's on a I don't want to call it a minute restriction, but he's going to be on a maintenance for the rest of the season. I mean, they're going to watch that knee. That knee may not be healthy the rest of the year, Sam, the way that there's been reports of him having tendonitis in that knee. And so that may not be fully healed until the offseason. So you got to really baby him a little bit, in my opinion, on some of these games. And tonight was a good night to do that. So you'd like, in theory, in a perfect world, Sam, to kind of be in a situation where you win some of these games here on the road. That way you give yourself some breathing room when you get back. Because when you get back, you're going to have games against your final 3 games of the year against the Grizzlies, Pacers, and Hornets. So that's favorable schedule for them to maybe, hopefully, have something locked up and maybe sit out those last 2 or 3 in some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal, especially with Mitchell. You know, one of the guys who's remained healthy is Jarret Allen
Yep.
has stayed healthy, knock on wood, this second half of the season or for most of the season. Remember, he missed the early part there. I don't know how many games at the beginning, but he missed a little bit at the start, and he's been relatively healthy, really having a career season this year. So it'd be nice if he could just take a game off, like you said, against one of these. After this trip, you've got the 3 home games. If he could potentially get a game in there, and some of these other guys too. You know, I tweeted out tonight that I just realized that George Niang is the lone member of the Cavs to have played in all 76 games so far this season.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Wild.
you know, dad bods for the win, man.
G-Wagon, baby.
Yeah. So there's most of these guys, though, you know, that come off the bench, they don't necessarily need the rest. But, you know, you're talking about guys like Jarret Allen, Darius Garland, maybe even Karis LeVert and Evan Mobley that could use some time. And then clearly Donovan Mitchell as well. But I don't know that they're going to be able to do that because this race is so tight. Like I said, the Cavs are in third, and this is their biggest lead they've had in a while. And it's only 1.5 games over the Magic and Knicks. So, you know, I don't think it's a big deal. And we've talked about this, whether they finish third or fourth in the East. You just don't want to finish fifth because then you got to open the playoffs on the road. Though I still would like their chances, even if they played Orlando as the number 5 seed and had to go to Orlando. I would like the Cavs in that series, but I'm getting way ahead of myself as usual.
Well, you know what? There's plenty of time to kind of dissect that because we'll probably have, you know, we were just talking about this before we recorded. We'll probably do 2 more podcasts before the season or the playoffs. So we'll have one, and then we'll have one next week. Though in the last week to wrap up the season, then we'll probably do a preview pod. So there's a lot of time to figure out what's going to happen here because these standings are going to change. You know, it's interesting. You look at this, and boy, when that 2 months ago, we knew at the time what the Cavs were doing was incredible, and it wasn't going to be sustainable, and it wasn't when they were somewhat healthy. They did it without Garland and without Mobley for a while there. And what's won 17 and 19, Sam, something ridiculous like that.
17, 18, yeah.
And we've talked about on the podcast, they kind of peaked at the wrong time. And now then you get the other injuries that have hit since. And so then you saw that lead there in the standings kind of dwindle a little bit. But as we sit here tonight, as the calendar has flipped over to April 3rd, you're right. They're a game and a half up on the Magic and Knicks and 3 games up on 6-seeded Pacers. So it is tight, and they're only a game and a half back of the Bucks for that 2 seed. Although more realistic chance of getting that is slim to none. One thing though, you mentioned. Well, I want to get back to the standings in a second, but you mentioned Jarret Allen, how he is having a career year, and he's been relatively healthy all year, with the exception of the beginning of the season. I think he's only missed like 5 or 6 games. It's interesting though how productive he has been, all-star snub, and should have been there, by the way. He did all this with Evan Mobley not in the lineup.
Yeah.
For the most part all year, which begs the question, and we've talked about it. Chase has brought this up in episodes. We both have too, but now let's talk about this here in early April. Is Jarret Allen better for this team when Evan Mobley is not on the court?
You know, if they played like they played tonight, they were both extremely efficient. They both look very comfortable. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, they were, you know, playing against second and third string centers and power forwards. And Walker Kessler, the Jazz center, who's really kind of their regular center, got hit in the nose early in the game and exited, never came back. So they really were playing deep almost against Jazz G leaguers. But I will say that they both, if they can do what they did tonight and they looked so comfortable on the court together, really made a huge difference defensively. That's where Allen and Mobley are, that's when they're at their best, is at the defensive end when they're on the court together. But um, I think, John, that question, I think a lot of questions we have about the Cavs are going to be answered in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know,
Yep.
are because the playoffs can change guys. You look at Isaac Okoro, who really was kind of pulled from the rotation last year in the playoffs, which would never happen during the regular season. I'm just using that as a small example, but it's just those are the type of things that can happen in a playoff series. So I I would hate to give up on the idea of Mobley and Allen together. I think it would be way too soon for that. But um, yeah, it's sometimes to me Jared Allen's at his best when Evan Mobley's not out there, and I don't think that those things are necessarily. It could just be a coincidence, but there could be something else to that as well. Allen's just going to get more opportunity, on the offensive end when Mobley's not out there. It's just it's just going to happen.
Is there anything
So
JB Bickerstaff can do to mold a system around those two guys, or can call up some schemes? Because if there's no really set offense with this team, which has been a big knock on
yeah,
Bickerstaff since he got the job, and you see it when the Cavs aren't in any type of rhythm or chemistry. There's no set offense, and they're just kind of floundering around there. Conversation for a different day, I know, but I mean, there's got to be something a coach can do to better utilize these two guys' strength, no?
yeah, I think it's helping that Mobley's becoming more of a threat from the perimeter. I think, especially in the season second half, that should, from what I've seen, he's trying to extend his game. Doesn't necessarily have to be the 3-point line, although he's been taking more of those and he's been making a few more, but he just seems more comfortable shooting that 17 to 22 footer. Whereas that I think that kind of creates more space for Allen. Allen doesn't need the ball to be effective. He's going to get his points. He's shooting 70% from the field or something crazy like that. And it's because his offense comes when, he's never going to force a shot. Some guys, and guys force shots. You play this many games, you're going to do that, but he never does. He just lets the game come to him. It's very clear that he doesn't care if he has 8 points or if he has 25. So I think that's the benefit of having Allen and Mobley together. The con of that whole thing, though, is sometimes it gets a little crowded down there. The spacing gets a little bit off. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there something JB could do? Sure. I just don't know what the answer to that is. And like I said, they look perfectly comfortable tonight. And that was Allen and Mobley as a pair at their best.
Yeah.
21 points apiece, 20 rebounds combined. I just think it just takes some time, I guess, for them to get fluid and for Mobley to stay in the lineup, not get injured, Allen to stay in the lineup, not get injured. I think those things set them back a little bit.
I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast before. Well, we have talked about Evan Mobley and his, what we think stalled development, his growth, and you and I have both talked about this, Chase, too, how, we need to see more of his game develop, right? And we just haven't seen it, and it's slow go. And it's frustrating, I think, at times. I had Campy Russell on the podcast with my brother, I don't know, about 2 months ago, and we were discussing this, and I said to him, I can't remember exactly my question to him, but I said, Campy, when you look at Evan Mobley and you see all these coaches and scouts and analysts and members of the media and reporters that say, hey, this guy, when he came in the league, his frame and his skill set, sky's the limit, but he kind of looks like a Kevin Durant or a Chris Bosh or a Kevin Garnett, and people run with that and they see similarities, but it's not there, and now we don't see it. And he brought up something really good. He's like, well, The reason why you're frustrated with that is because you heard that. It doesn't mean he's going to be that now. People and fans are probably more frustrated with him because of having that narrative already in place, 2, 3 years ago when he came in the league. And while I completely agree with him, and it's actually a good point, I think if we came into that more open-ended 2, 3 years ago, we probably would be more patient with him. However, on the flip side, you see a guy with tremendous talent, but you also see untapped talent. And it's the challenge of this coaching staff to get the best out of him. And it just hasn't happened yet. It's not a knock on him or a knock on the Cavs. Sometimes it takes players a little bit longer.
Yeah, I used to say that in the NBA, you could judge a guy after 3 years, but now I think it's 4 because the players are coming in so young.
Sure.
If you look at, to me, a guy that we've talked about a little bit on this podcast is Isaac Okoro, who the first 3 years of his career, I was just like, this guy just runs up and down the floor for the most part. He's
trust me. You and I have been very hard on him over the last few years, but we've also given him a lot of credit this season too.
This season, I think he's been much more a part of things. Okoro's another guy who's not going to force anything offensively. And, that's just his game. He's more of a kind of keep the ball moving type of guy. He's more confident this year taking that corner three. I think his defense this season is better than it's ever been. He just seems to be much more comfortable as a professional this year. And somebody you think about that, somebody like Evan Mobley, who's in year 3, I think if he gets to another level of just being comfortable, playing alongside Jarret Allen, just being more comfortable in the NBA game, has a relatively healthy season, which, this year he's missed a lot of time. So I just think he just needs that maybe one more season before we say, he's not going to, that this isn't his ceiling. And I would hate to think that this is a ceiling, because as you can see his upside, and that he's ready to, he has the talent to be, I don't know, Durant, Garnett, those guys, but a level right below them. And I just think, I don't know. I can tell you as a viewer of the team, that sometimes it's like, why isn't this guy better? Why isn't he dominant? And there are games he has moments, but moments aren't good enough. If you're going to be a great player, an all-star, you've got to be the type of guy who steps on the floor and the other team's like, okay, we're going to have problems with this guy. I think that they think we have to be aware of Evan Mobley, but I don't think that they fear him like you would a Garnett or a, Tim Duncan or any of the great power forwards, Durant. I don't think that he's not at that level when it comes to opponents completely game planning for him. And I think he can get to a level where he is one of those type of guys, if not, as great as those guys are, at least a level below them. And as a viewer, sometimes admittedly, it's frustrating. It's sometimes you just feel like he's just running around out there. Mm-hmm. And then other times, because and I think part of that's because he's very unassuming. His style is very unassuming, and he's not a loud player. He's not going to be doing a bunch of cheering and hyper, hyping up the crowd and all that. That's just not his nature. So, I don't know, but I think part of it too is he's not taken that next step yet. And again, like I said, I'll give him year 4. Usually year 4, it seems like to me, is when you can really tell which direction a player is headed. And usually by year 4, they come close to hitting their ceiling if they haven't hit it.
Well, if you look at his numbers just in general, the biggest thing that's jumped out at me on him, and you don't even need to see the numbers if you just watched enough of it, is his three-point shooting has jumped up big time this year.
Yep.
And that's huge. That was a big knock on him. And you mentioned a little bit ago, perimeter shooting. Everything else seems to be kind of down a little bit. I mean, rebounds are higher, but his points slightly down. But he's also been hurt too. So, but he's been fairly consistent from the field. If he wasn't hurt this year with that sprained ankle, and didn't he? What else did he have earlier in the
Knee
year?
surgery.
Oh yeah, that's right. Duh, the knee surgery. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah, that. Oh yeah, because he and DG were gone at the same time. You know, he probably would have had a career year, despite maybe some of the little bumps in the road of his development. But good thing is now he is healthy, and he's one of the few that are fully healthy. Let's get into before we take a break. Let's get into some health questions for you. We touched on Donovan. We've touched on how Evan's kind of back from his ankle, but we don't see Dean Wade out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He might that knee injury a little more serious than originally thought, or maybe a little more annoying for them.
Yeah, it's really odd. He missed a few games for personal reasons, and then he came back and went immediately on the injured list. Like,
Mhm.
so it's like, did he hurt it at practice? Did he hurt it while he was away? I mean, because he was playing up until he missed some of those games for personal reasons. And now there's a report, we ran it on the website yesterday that he could potentially be out for the year.
Mhm.
Nobody's really sure. The Cavs haven't been real clear, other than JB Bickerstaff, when last week when asked about it, made it sound like the word is always progressing.
Yep.
So I don't know whether he's had a setback or if it's just not as, maybe JB wasn't given the right information by the medical team. It's just very, very confusing. And I mean, Dean Wade's not going to score much. He's not going to shoot much, but he's been really a good defender for them this year, really defending everything from power forwards to shooting guards. And he's done a nice job. And so they miss that a little bit, but I just it is top secret what is going on here with this supposed knee injury, or how he even heard it.
Right.
I don't, those questions have not been answered. And John, I don't know if they've been asked. I don't know if anyone's asked, hey, how did he hurt his knee? And there are times when I'm up there and I want to do it. But then, the questions go in a different mode or kind of a, different path by other
Yep.
media members. And so I never really have gotten an opportunity to get that question in, but if he's not playing, and I don't think he's going to be when they get back home because he's not on this trip. I fully intend to ask, how did he hurt it? How long is he going to be out? What is the severity of this? And, mostly, how did this happen?
Mhm.
When did it happen? It's just really odd to me that it's just kept top secret. And I mean, I had a reader, speaking of which, a reader asked me, hey, did Ty Jerome get his leg amputated? Because this guy had like a sprained ankle. And then I think he did undergo surgery on it at one point. But I mean, he appeared in what, 3/4 as a member of the Cavaliers? And I mean,
Yeah.
what on earth? And I don't understand why this is kept top secret.
Yeah, especially that one. That one doesn't make
Well,
any
no one's
sense.
game planning for Dean Wade or Ty Jerome. So why do you have to keep these things a secret? If you want to keep Donovan Mitchell a secret on game day, as long as you can, and call him questionable so that the other team can't plan for him, which is a very underrated, or I'm sorry, very overrated strategy.
Well, I've talked on the podcast about hockey in the NHL when I covered the Lightning.
Yeah.
I worked down in Tampa. It always killed me when they would label players with lower body injuries or upper body
Yeah.
injuries. And it was because, hockey's more, a physical sport. So if you've got a bum knee or, you got a bad shoulder or a bad wrist, I mean, you can target that in your checks, the forecheck.
Right.
You can, when you pin up guys against the glass, it's one thing, but the NBA, come on. It shouldn't be this. It should not be this way.
I don't know why it's so secretive. I really don't.
By the way, this is game 13 Dean Wade has missed. Hasn't played since March 8th.
Wow.
Feels like it's been longer than that, but
Yeah.
Isaac Okoro's got a toe injury. He'll be back. Doesn't seem to be serious. We
He's
say
on
that
the
now.
trip.
He's on the trip. He was there on the bench today, so you saw him there. He'll be back shortly. So yeah, you got to get somewhat healthy here for the stretched run. All right, let's take a break here. Coming up, I want to do this day in Cavs history and also talk about the remainder 3 games left on this road trip. 2 down, 3 more to go. You're listening to Cavs on the Break NBA podcasts. Sam and I will be back right after this.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabo.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabo Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabo Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Cavs on the Break listeners, we have teamed up with Columbus-based company Homage. You may know them. We've been talking about them on the podcast for a few months. And boy, did they produce some great merch for you when it comes to upgrading your swag game in your closet. They are Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati and all of the surrounding markets home for your professional sports teams. In Cleveland, you got the Cavs, the Guardians, the Browns, college, Ohio State, MAC, NHL, pop culture, you name it. Sam, they have some really cool clothes when it comes to T-shirts and hoodies and shorts, and it's high quality as well.
And they have Austin Carr, which I have. The Austin Carr as a player T-shirt. That is just amazing. I even told AC that I had it, and we talked a little bit about it. We talked about Homage and all the kind of gear that I've gotten over the years from them. Usually, obviously the T-shirts have been just my favorite thing. And there's just so many of them. Obviously, as being an NBA guy and a guy who loves classic NBA stuff, they've got. I just love their spin on everything when it comes to how they design retro T-shirts. Frankly, that's been. I mean, I think I probably have like close to a dozen of them over the years. I've gotten them just because I love the designs.
The retro stuff and the NBA Jam stuff's awesome. They do NFL Jam, MLB Jam now. I've got an old school one with Mark Price and Brad Daugherty on it. That was one of my favorite ones. They sent me a cool Cavs one recently with the old gold script from the 70s. I mean, these guys over there keep knocking it out, Sam, with all those new designs and those retro designs and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I have an NBA Jam with Kevin McHale and Larry Bird, I believe. So they offered me, a chance to pick my own NBA Jam T-shirt, and one of the ones I believe was Price and Daugherty, and I took Bird and McHale instead.
Oh no, I'm telling Mark on you.
yeah, I don't know. He may know that story, but yeah, I love it, and just because I have so much Cavs stuff. And it's kind of funny that I went with Austin Carr, but not Mark Price. But I loved it. I was excited as, when you used to get stuff in the mail as a kid, you'd be real excited. That's how I felt when I got the Austin Carr T-shirt finally showed up. So, yeah, I mean, and some of their old school stuff that I have, like Tampa Bay Buccaneers old school logo.
Yeah, Bucko Bruce.
T-shirt. Yeah. So there's just a lot of stuff like that obviously modern fans of modern teams and their logos and stuff can go to shop, but I stick to the retro stuff, and I just love it because to me it's the best best retro stuff out there.
No doubt for sure. And they also have pop culture stuff, WWE, you name it, college. Head on over to our show notes. We have a link for you to browse and upgrade your closet with whatever you need. Big thanks to Homage. Check them out.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading,
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
Welcome back to Cavs on the Break, NBA podcast, right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sabol here alongside Hoops Wire's Sam Amico. All right, Sam, I'm going to give you the pick. Do you want to talk about the remainder of the road trip, or you want to do this day in Cavs history?
Well, let's start with the remainder of the road trip because I think we should blow through that because I get way too excited about this day in Cavs history.
All right. I was hoping you'd say that. I kind of felt bad driving the ship here, and I wanted to see if you wanted to take the wheel. And
I prefer that you drive.
all right, I'm going to drive right to Phoenix because that's where the Cavs go next. They go there. If you listen to this on Wednesday, they play there tonight on April 3rd, 10 o'clock tip. Phoenix hasn't played since Monday. They're going to be well rested. And of course, they've got they're actually a 2-game, I believe, Sam. They're 2 games worse than the Cavs in the standings out west, but that's a lot because of what's been going on with Durant earlier and Devin Booker and their injuries.
Beal.
But Bradley Beal's another one, which is just incredible to think about how they played like not even a quarter of the games together for those 3. But Phoenix comes into this winners of 6 of 10, and so fairly decent team at home, especially when those 3 guys are in the lineup. I assume all 3 will be playing tomorrow or tonight. So that will be a tough test for the Cavs. And let's assume for a second that Donovan Mitchell will play. And if that's the case, then this would be a good barometer to see how this team matches up with a very talented Suns squad.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for the Suns standpoint, I think they're an 8th in the Western Conference, but which is the play-in tournament, a road game in the play-in tournament, but they're only a game, I think, out of 5th in the Western Conference.
You're right.
Which, means all of a sudden you're in the playoffs, you're 5th seed. That's a big difference. So, I mean, those teams out west that the Cavs are facing, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Clippers, they're all fighting for playoff positioning as well, which is going to make those games supposedly, in theory, more intense from these other teams, and you're playing them on their floor. So, it's just going to be a tough one whether the Cavs have Mitchell or not. And there was no indication after the Jazz game whether or not he was going to play in Phoenix because, you're immediately doing your press conference and trying to get that over with and getting on the plane and heading to Phoenix. So, yeah, I mean, these 3 games, talk about Phoenix, talk about the Lakers, which is Cavs won their last year, but, this is a different story for the Lakers now. That was early in the season when the Cavs won their last year. So it's just, these are 3 tough games. You talk about how close the Eastern Conference race is. Let's say the Cavs lose all 3 of these. They could be in 5th at the end of the trip. Then you have those 3 home games, and then you could be back up to 3rd. So I think that they need to find a way to steal one more of these just for their own, just for feeling good about themselves when they get back home, that they're not down in 5th or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to play one of their best games. I think that Phoenix probably of this whole trip is going to be the toughest one. Just because the second night of a back-to-back after a pretty easy win. And if you don't have Donovan Mitchell, that's really going to be trouble spot. If you do have him, it's still going to be extremely tough. And, just going to have to, they're going to have to build off of what they did in Utah and play that style, which was they very much shared the wealth, and guys like Merrill and Strus were hitting shots, and LeVert had a big game. They're going to need all of that and more to beat a Phoenix Suns team on the road.
Yeah, Phoenix has, according to Tankathon, has the number one toughest remaining schedule in the NBA with 7 games left. And if our listeners are wondering when it comes to the standings, I mean, Phoenix needs, they could very well be, on the outside looking in here if they cannot. I mean, they're going to be in the play-in tournament. I should say this. Like, I mean, either they're going to be in the play-in tournament or they're going to be like a 5th or a 6th seed because of that. It is so tight there, Sam. I mean, they're not going to fall out of contention because the Houston Rockets, who are not in the play-in tournament at the moment, are 3 games back of the Warriors, who hold that 10th spot in the seed there. So Phoenix is going to get in, but if they want to get out of that play-in tournament, they're going to have a tough time in those games. This is going to be a tough test for the Cavs, but after that, you're right. You play the Lakers, who's also in the play-in tournament right now, and then you've got the Clippers, who have the 4th seed pretty much locked in. So you're facing 3 playoff teams on the remainder of the road trip, and also in a tight spot. And you have a back-to-back in LA, Saturday at the Lakers and Sunday against the Clippers. Thankfully, those games both tip at 3:30 in the afternoon, so you don't have the tight turnaround if you had a game at 7, then a game at 1 or whatever. So that's something to kind of look at. And I mean, I think, Sam, if they can win one of these next 3, go 1-2, and not go 0-3, that's okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But if you lose these 3, yeah, you're right. You could be in danger of falling right down to the 5th seed, depending on what the Pacers, Knicks, and Magic do.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at, I don't know what those teams' schedule is. The Magic haven't been playing particularly well. They've been winning, but not playing real well. They beat Portland the other night at home by a point, and a Portland team that's really trying to lose for the most part. I mean, they play in the lottery again. So Orlando, and they lost to the Warriors at home earlier in the week. So a lot of it depends on what those other teams do too. But yeah, I think it's important just for the Cavs, like I said, just for their own morale to get one of these games, one of these next 3. And it's not going to be easy. The good news is you do have 2 days off. You get Thursday and Friday off between Phoenix and the Los Angeles back to back. Let me ask you this, John: you're going to watch the Cavs, Lakers, or the Final Four?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I will be there. Well, the Cavs Lakers play
3:30, right?
3:30.
What time's the first men's Final Four?
Oh, yeah, because I'm sorry, I'm going to be at the women's Final Four covering here for Fox 8 locally
cool.
Friday and Sunday, which is I'm actually pretty excited about. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The men play at 6:09.
Okay, well then Cavs game will be over.
Cavs will be wrapping up, and then Purdue NC State will tip at 6:09, and then 8:49 is Alabama UConn. By the way, how's your bracket doing? You didn't want to join my pool this year, and I was pretty upset about that. For you told me and teased me
pools
that you were going to do it.
You have like 70 people in your pool. I had no chance.
That just means the pot is growing, baby.
I had no chance in that pool.
We actually have 37 people in the pool.
Wow. I'm in one with like 20, and I think I'm in 3rd. And I have UConn winning it all, but so do the other 2 people, I think.
I'm tied for 7th in my pool, but if UConn and Purdue both win and they go to the national championship game, I jump from 7 to 2nd, and I'll secure a 2nd spot, which 2nd spot gets money.
Who does Purdue play?
Purdue plays
Alabama? No,
NC State,
and then
UConn,
Alabama, and the other one
at the late game. The women's Final Four is gonna be so much fun here locally in Cleveland, man, because with Caitlin Clark winning the other night, securing that spot, that's going to be insane here around Cleveland. Cleveland's going to be is going to be the mecca of sports, and also sports to a certain extent, but also because of what's going on after the women's Final Four. You have game with the national semifinals Friday, women's national championship game Sunday, Guardians home opener on Monday, and then
the Eclipse,
which here locally, all the TV stations, including mine at Fox 8, are going nuts for. We're doing like hour-long specials on it
Oh,
on
wow.
that day. So I'll be at Progressive Field that
You have
day.
glasses?
Not yet. They're gonna provide them for me. Hopefully, I can't go blind.
It wouldn't be worth it.
By the way, you just said, before we get to Cavs history, you just said you didn't know what the other teams in the Eastern Conference near the Cavs in the standings strength of schedule looks like.
Yeah.
So let me run it down for you. I'll just highlight the three: Magic, Knicks, and Pacers, because those are the three teams that are directly impacting to the Cavs. As it sits now on April 3rd, Cavs have you already said this, Sam, but let me just recap to kind of give you some perspective. 1.5 game lead in the third spot over Orlando and New York, and 3-game lead on the Pacers. This is how it looks for the remainder of the strength of schedule. I told you Phoenix has the hardest remaining schedule that's out west. The Knicks have the 6th hardest remaining schedule with 7 games left. Boston, Sacramento, Milwaukee, and then Brooklyn, and then they play the Bulls 3 times. So they're going to get a little
Play the
breather
Bulls
there.
3 times in the last 7 games?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, how does that happen, by the way?
Play-in tournament that messed up the whole schedule.
Did
Or
it?
not the play-in tournament, I'm sorry, the in-season tournament.
Yeah, they're in Chicago on the 5th, in Chicago on the 9th, and end the regular season at home at the Garden on the 14th.
And nobody knows what to ever expect from the Chicago Bulls this year.
Ugh. Yeah. Well, they've got that 9 seed locked. They're clinched in the play-in tournament. Okay,
Atlanta's the only team that hasn't, out of the top 10 in the East, that has yet to clinch a spot.
Orlando has the 9th hardest remaining schedule. They have 7 games left: 2 against the Bucks, 1 against the Pelicans, Sixers, Rockets, 1 against the Bulls, and Hornets. Pacers have the 15th easiest remaining schedule, 6 games left: 1 game against the Cavs, Heat, and Thunder, and then 1 game, the easy opponents, Raptors, Nets, Hawks. You got to go all the way down to number 20. That's where the Cavaliers are. The 20th remaining easiest schedule in the league, with a combined winning percentage of 487. There's 6 games left. Cavs are one of the few teams left in the league that have 6. The majority of the teams in the league have 7 games left. So they're already 1 up in the win column on New York. Cavs, of course, we touched on that West Coast trip. Clippers, Suns, Lakers. Not in that order. I'm just reading it off of here. They go by the winning percentage. Pacers, and then they wrap it up with the Hornets and Grizzlies at home. So there you got it. How about that? Thoughts?
That's I'm surprised that they're only considering
It's based off
percentage.
of opponent's win percentage.
Yeah. Well, in reality, the Lakers are probably better than their record.
Yep.
The Suns are better than their record. And you've got to play them in their place. To me, and the Clippers, same thing. All of those, playing those teams at their place. And again, that's a product of the in-season tournament. This is the latest the Cavs have ever gone out west, ever. In their, however,
right.
52, 53-year history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a result of the in-season tournament. That's why these so many teams have this weird back end of the schedule, because they wanted to squeeze in that in-season tournament in November and early December. So for better or worse, that's why they are where they are now. And I think we should talk about this day in Cavs history, because I can't wait any longer.
Let's wrap this podcast up with this day in Cavs history. I haven't done one of these in a little while, just because when we record them, there's nothing, coincidentally, nothing going on there. But our good friend of the show, good friend for you, and I'd like to call him a good friend, but he's really not a good friend for me. More of a colleague, more of an acquaintance, but one of my all-time childhood hero. How about that?
Other than me? Oh,
well, you hit a little deeper in the heart there.
Okay.
Of course. Our boy Mark Price tweeted this out. I think he got it from Bally Sports Great Lakes' Twitter account. On this day in Cavaliers history, and now the calendar is flipped. We're recording this late at night here on April 3rd, so this actually would be this day in history on April 2nd. So on this day in April 2nd, 1993, care to guess what happened in Cavs history on that day?
I bet it was something involving Mark Price.
Obviously.
That's my bet. I wouldn't know. I don't know. Give me the year.
93.
93. I don't know. Just let me know.
In a game against the Charlotte Hornets, Mark Price set a Cleveland Cavaliers franchise record, making his 77th consecutive free throw without a miss.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's impressive.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, when did he miss?
I know the graphic doesn't say, but I could probably go in and look at it. I could go in
Yeah.
basketball
Huh.
reference right now and look at it if you want.
No, I just thought if you knew it off the top of your head.
I should
The,
have known that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that Michael Williams, which a lot of people don't know, from the Minnesota Timberwolves, had held the record for the most consecutive free throws made for the longest time. But I don't know. I kind of stopped following that stat, so I just knew that no name Michael Williams, Minnesota Timberwolves point guard, was the record holder for a long time in consecutive made free throws.
Well, I can tell you this right now, Sam. I'm digging deep into the archives.
Oh, I
And
had no doubt that you would.
I found it.
Okay.
He missed a free throw in that game.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. That was easy.
Oh, he left that part out conveniently.
He
didn't
did. Yeah. Come on, Mark. Yeah, he went 7 of 8 from the free throw line. And coincidentally, how about this? 9 days later against the Hawks, he also went 7 of 8 from the free throw line. And then 5 days later against the Bulls, April 18th, 1993, Mark went 9 of 11 from the free throw line.
Wow.
So that month of April did not go so hot for his free throws. So, but if you really do think about it, though, this is what's mind blowing. Mark Price that year missed. It looks like he only missed 3 no, he missed some in November. Under 10 free throws for the season.
Wow.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, actually, no, it's 5. He missed 6 free throws the whole year.
Wow. That's no, because really the whole year you only missed 6?
Yeah, if I'm doing my quick math, now you put me on the spot as we record this. Sheesh. Again, I came unprepared on that part. You're asking the tough, hard-nosed questions. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So you're counting them all game by game?
It was 10. Yeah, 10. I think it's 10.
Wow.
Rough estimate
That's
of
still
10.
pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
You know, my freshman year of college, I only missed 1.
How many attempts?
I was 2 or 3.
Nice.
I was 2 or 2, and they had me. You know, I was coming off the bench, obviously that freshman year, and wasn't playing a whole lot. But they called me in to let me shoot a technical, and I missed it.
Did it hurt the game? Did you lose?
No, we were up by like 25. That's the only reason I was in the game in the first place. We were up by like 25. So
that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I only missed 1 that year.
Mark
next
Price
to my-
that year, actually, by the way, had his career high of the highest free throw percentage of 94%, highest
Wow.
ever.
Yeah, you don't see that very often today.
I mean, Steph Curry doesn't even do 94% from the free throw line.
No, he's usually 90.
Mark
Yeah.
Price, for the longest time, held the NBA record for highest free throw percentage in the league. And I think Steve Nash, I think he holds the all-time record by like 1/10 of a point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nash,
actually, Steph Curry's over it now. Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nash was lethal from the line. Danny Ainge, when he was with those old Celtics teams, was always I remember one year Danny Ainge and Larry Bird, his teammates with the Celtics, were in a constant battle to see who would win the NBA free throw shooting title.
Yeah.
And in games where the Celtics had a big lead, Ainge was at the line. Of course, Bird would taunt him to miss.
I'm going to throw one more trivia question at for you real quick before we
I
wrap
can't
this up.
wait. All right.
This is not Cavs related because now I'm looking at the all-time free throw percentage. Steph
Mhm.
Curry, Steve Nash, Mark Price, Rick Barry round out the top 4. Do you know who number 5 is? I'll give you a clue. It's an active player.
Active player. So we have Steph Curry, Mark Price, Steve Nash. Who was the other one? Rick Barry.
Rick Barry, yeah.
Number 5.
Who, by the way, Rick Barry, I told you about this 2 years ago at All-Star Weekend. He was in town.
Oh, yeah. Playing pickleball.
Pickleball out in Streetsboro at the Western Reserve Racket Club there.
Yeah.
Mark Stein, NBA writer Mark Stein,
Yeah.
was out there, and I was talking with him about it, and Rick Barry was just crushing kids left and right. Not kids, guys, I guess, but he was good. Good chat with him. All right, want to guess?
Active player.
Yep. Future Hall of Famer.
Future Hall of Famer. Boy. Damian Lillard. No?
That's me clapping.
Really?
Yeah, good job.
Wow. It was a wild guess.
Yeah. 89% free throw tosser, as the legendary Joe Tate used to say.
Damian Lillard. He's number
Yeah.
5. Okay. Who's number 6?
You know what? Let's do the whole 10. I think our listeners, if they're with us still here, they would love to listen to this. The last 10, pretty interesting. Number 6, Pejo Stojakovic. 7, Chauncey Billups. 8, Ray Allen. 9, JJ Redick. And number 10, Calvin Murphy.
Oh, wow. He was also a master of the baton. Calvin Murphy.
What?
That's true. He was a master baton twirler. Calvin Murphy. He's 5'9", played for the Houston Rockets, and made his name aside from the NBA as a master baton twirler.
No kidding.
No kidding. It's just like John Lucas, number 1 pick in the 1976 draft, who later went on to coach the Cavs, was the number 1 singles player in tennis at the University of Maryland.
No kidding. You know, Kenny Rhoda has a great John Lucas impersonation.
Yes, he does. And
He talks like this. He talks like this. Kenny
Talks
man,
like-
Road man, Sam. Hey.
Chris Mims. He used to call him Chris Mims.
Yes.
His name was Mim.
That's great.
It'd be like me calling you John Sabols every time we come in on the podcast.
Sam Amicos. Oh,
You're on player. You don't know his name.
that's outstanding. By the way, Scott Skiles, 11, Reggie Miller, 12, Larry Bird, 3, Kyrie Irving, 14, and we'll end it at 15, Kevin Durant.
I was going to say, I thought I would have guessed Durant in the top 10, but yeah, 15. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Scott Skiles, gosh. If there was ever a player who didn't belong in the NBA, but ended up being there anyway and was pretty decent. I remember I went to a Cavs game once when the Cavs played the Orlando Magic, and Mark Price just abused Scott Skiles all game.
I had a Cavs poster growing up, and it said like Cavaliers team leaders, and it was a poster of Mark Price, Brad Doherty, Larry Nance, and on they're all individual like pictures on this poster, right? And there's a picture of Brad Doherty posterizing Scott Skiles on the dunk at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
That's how I remembered Scott Skiles growing up, because a Doherty dunked on him in this poster I had my wall. Literally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fun episode here in Cavs on the Break. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, give us a comment. Hopefully you're commenting on our fantastic This Day in Cavs trivia. I would appreciate it. If you haven't already, though, follow us on Twitter. Follow yours truly at John_Sable. Follow the pod at Cavs on the Break. And you can follow Mr. Hoopswire, Sam Amico at Amico Hoops. Sam, we'll see if the Cavs can get out this road trip without getting swept in that final 3 games. Hopefully
Yeah,
not.
I think that's important. It's not super vital because you do have that easier schedule at home, but it'd be nice, like I said, for morale for them to get one of these next 3.
We'll see what they can do. That'll do it here on this edition of Cavs on the Break. We'll check you guys back next week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.